Hi everyone, and welcome to the Book Refuge, and welcome to a video I have been so excited to film. As you can already tell, today we're going to be doing a deep dive on Julia Quinn, who is my favorite historical romance author. I've loved her since I was 15 years old and started reading her books. And today we're going to do a deep dive on all of her series that are currently out. One of them is about to finish off. The last book comes out in April for one of her series, but we're going to be going over all of her main series and books that she wrote by herself. So we're not going to talk about any of the anthologies or books that she co-wrote with anyone. We're just going to go over this series, and we're going to start at the beginning and go all the way up to current. We're going to go in chronological order of when they were written, and I'm going to do a quick blurb about what each one is about. So we're going to get started because I think we have 30 books to go over right now, and I'm so excited. So first off, I want to say, please subscribe to my channel if you want to see more romance content. I put up new videos 3 to 4 times a week. Right now I'm doing an Outlander season 5 breakdown every week of the new episodes. And let me know if there's any authors that you'd like me to do this with, whether it's historical or not, if you see me read them before. I really want to do one with Tessa Dare as soon as I finish her books. But let me know if there are people you'd be interested in this for, and we'll see how it goes. So we have to start with her first series, which her first book was put out in 1995, and that book was Splendid. And this started the Splendid Trilogy, which includes Splendid, Dancing at Midnight, and Minx. So what I'm going to do is I'll tell you who the couple is and just like a blurb about it, and then I'll tell you if any of them were like favorites of mine, just, to tell you where to start. Any of her books, as most historical authors would say, you can start wherever you want to, which some people do, but that seriously annoys me because I believe that if an author made it a trilogy, if it's a series, I know they say you can start anywhere because, nobody wants there to be like a high barrier of entry into their books. But let's be honest, we want to start at the beginning of a series. So Splendid is the first book she ever wrote, and this one is about Alex and Emma. And so Alex is, the lord of some such whatever, and Emma is actually an American heiress, and she's visiting family in England, and she actually ends up undercover as a maid, and not even for a crazy reason. She's just dressed as one, and she goes to run an errand, and she runs into Alex. And then when he goes to visit his friend's house, he realizes that she's staying with them, and she's not a maid. She's actually their friend who's visiting, and so he's immediately intrigued by her, and it's super adorable. So yes, Splendid is the first book. The next book in this series is called Dancing at Midnight, and this is about Lord John and Lady Arabella. And this is kind of an ugly duckling story. Arabella is an heiress, but she's not that pretty. She is book smart, loves to read. I know that's a horrible classification, but it's a trope that is tried and true sometimes. So she's had a lot of men telling them that they'd be happy to marry her for her money, but they aren't into her looks, which is just horrible. John is a wounded warrior. He is a war hero who has an injury. So he's not quite crippled, but he walks with a limp, and he has PTSD, and he doesn't think anything good about himself, and he's struggling with that. And this is them falling for each other, and I really like this. The third book in this trilogy is Minx. Now this one is about William and Henry, and no, it's not a gay romance. It's Henrietta, but she goes by Henry, and she's been staying with, I'm not sure, I think it's her, let me just check. I think it was her uncle. I can't quite remember, but her guardian dies, and so the estate gets left to William, who doesn't really want it, but he feels like he needs to take care of it. And when he finds out that there is actually a ward that he's supposed to take care of, he is shocked because he didn't know about that. And this is a girl of marriageable age, and he feels like he needs to take care of her and make sure she gets married off. But Henry, she wants to keep running the estate because she's basically been running it while her guardian was sick, and she doesn't think that William can hack it. And so it's a battle of wills. It's a little bit of a hate to love, and it's super fun. And we get to see all of our characters we met in the other 2 books in this one. Moving along to the next duology, so in chronological order, she then wrote the Lyndon sisters duet. And this includes Everything in the Moon and Brighter Than the Sun. Everything and the Moon. This is about Robert and Victoria. These two were in love when they were younger, and they were actually going to elope together. And then something happened where Victoria wasn't able to meet Robert, and it ruined it. It was a scandal, and she had to go off and leave. And so now she's living in kind of shame, and Robert runs into her again years later and asks her to be his mistress. And Victoria's not really into that. She knows that she's worth more than that, but they have an interesting combative relationship, trying to discover if they still love each other, or is he just doing this out of revenge to get back at her, or what's going on. And I've read this one a long time ago, so I can't remember how I totally felt about it, but that is the premise of this one. Brighter Than the Sun. This is about Charles and Ellie. Ellie is supposed to marry this like horrible man, and Charles must find a bride before his 30th birthday, which is coming very soon. And so they have kind of a meet cute, and then they decide, hey, let's get married. So instead of marrying this like vile old man that she's supposed to, she runs away and marries this basically stranger, but they have some serious chemistry, and you know, I'm sure everything's gonna go perfect for them. Next, we have the Agents of the Crown duology, which came next, and this included To Catch an Heiress and How to Marry a Marquess. Marquess, whatever. I'm horrible at figuring that out. So the Agents of the Crown, obviously these are either spies or people who work for the king. That's what that means, in case you didn't know. So in To Catch an Heiress, we have Caroline and Blake. And so Blake kidnaps Caroline because he mistakes her for this notorious, what's the word they used to describe her? A notorious spy named Carlotta. And so he mistakes her, and so he kidnaps her. Now, this would normally be a no-no. We don't like our heroes to kidnap our heroines, but Caroline is trying to escape an arranged marriage. And so she figures, well, I'll just let this guy kidnap me and keep me safe from this wedding, and that'll get me out of marrying this guy I don't want to marry. And he's not too bad looking, so might as well. Nothing could go wrong. Well, eventually he finds out that she's not Carlotta, but by then he's already in love. Then we have How to Marry a Marquis, whatever, don't care. This is about Elizabeth and James. This is a mistaken identity situation where Elizabeth, she is a companion to James's, is it elderly aunt or grandmother? His aunt. And his aunt is also being blackmailed. And so the reason this is called How to Marry a Marquis is because Elizabeth found this book that tells you how to catch a rich guy. And he stumbles across the book, and then he believes that she might be the blackmailer and that she's a social climber just because she found this book, which she thought was pretty silly, but she was reading it anyway to, you know, see if it would work, but she wasn't really using it for anything. And so he thinks that she might be the one blackmailing his aunt. And so he goes about trying to prove it and, you know, falls in love with her instead. But who's the real blackmailer? Next, we get to the Bevelstoke Trilogy. Let me find that. And now, this series I have feelings about. So the first one in this series, or let me tell you what they are. So this series includes The Secret Diaries of Miss Miranda Cheever, the What Happens in London, and 10 Things I Love About You. So The Secret Diary of Miss Miranda Cheever, this is about Miranda and Nigel. And so this is kind of an age gap. When Miranda was young, she was kind of ugly. So this is another ugly duckling. I hate calling women ugly. I'm sorry. That's the trope that's used. She was a wallflower. She didn't fit in with societal norms. Whatever. That's a horrible thing, but it's a trope. I'm sorry. So, when she was 10, and I think Nigel was like 18 or 20, this is an age gap story, like I said, he kissed her hand and said one day she'll be the most beautiful girl around and that people will be begging to marry her, and he hopes that she waits for him. Now, he was kidding, but Miranda has always taken that to heart, and when she is now an adult and it's time for her to get married, she wants him to make good on his promise. And so she goes about winning Nigel over to her, and he has just been through some pretty rough things, and so he's not as open to love as he might have been before, but Miranda is determined to lighten his spirits and, you know, win him back. And it's really cute. I love this one. I really want to reread this series too. And I know that like last year I reread the series we're going to get to soon. And I'd really like to reread these like duologies and trilogies when I get there, because I know I had such good feelings about this one. This is one of the first ones I read of Julia's. Next, we have What Happens in London. This one is really fun. This one is about Olivia and Harry. And so Olivia, she is seen hanging around with this certain foreign prince. And this is a foreign prince who actually might be a spy and actually might be trying to cause England harm. And so Harry starts spying on her and, you know, maybe going to try to use her to catch this foreign prince. And they end up dealing together, conspiring together, and falling in love as they do it. And then we have 10 Things I Love About You, and this is about Sebastian and Annabelle. And this one is really fun. So this one, this old guy named Lord Newberry, he is the older uncle, or is it the older uncle? Anyway, it's the older uncle of Sebastian. And yes, and he wants to marry Annabelle and have an heir so that Sebastian won't be his heir. Annabelle is not so interested in that, and Sebastian is trying to thwart his uncle, and in doing so, he starts courting Yeah, it is an Annabelle. There's a couple Annabelles, I guess. Fun. Oh no, there's an Arabella and Annabelle. Whatever. And it's fun because this one has like 10 things that they love about each other. And I really like that. So this one was cute. This one was fun. The Two Dukes of Wyndham. So this is a duology, and it includes The Lost Duke of Wyndham and Mr. Cavendish, I presume. So this is a duology that I really, really love. I remember being so affected by this duology. So this is about, this one is about Jack and Grace, and this one is about Amelia and Thomas. Thomas is currently the Duke of Wyndham, and he is supposed to marry Amelia, sorry. They have been engaged since she was a child. They were always supposed to get married. They're betrothed. Well, we find out that he's not really the legitimate heir to the Wyndham estate. It's actually Jack. Jack has been living as a highwayman. He's illiterate. He's been making his way in the world, and he robs a stagecoach with Grace in it. And it also happens to have his grandmother, who is looking for the true heir to Wyndham. And so the reason I'm explaining these both at the same times is because these books take place at the same time. So you can read either one first, but they weave into each other. And so this was a really fun experience to read. I didn't know that about these because I actually read Mr. Cavendish, I presume, first, and it took quite a while before I ever found The Lost Duke of Wyndham. And so they're trying to prove who's really is the heir. And then because Amelia is engaged to the real Duke, so then it's a question of, well, does she have to marry Jack, or can she still marry Thomas if she wants to? And like, what are the rules about that, and what can we do about it? And it's so cute. I love this duology. It's so much fun. I highly suggest these. I love all 4 of these characters, and it's fun to see how it all plays out. Let's talk about what we all really want to talk about. I'm just kidding. It's just me. I have the Bridgerton series, which is beautiful. We're going to talk real quick about them. I've talked extensively about them in other videos that I have done because I read all of these books, reread all of them last year. But this is about a family, the Bridgertons, who have 8 children, and they are alphabetically named. So we have Anthony, Benedict, Colin, Daphne, Eloise, Francesca, Gregory, and Hyacinth. And their books aren't necessarily in order, but it's about each of them finding love. This is what's going to be a series called, I think it's called Bridgertons. It's going to be on Netflix soon. I'm really excited to see how they're going to do it. I'm kind of nervous, but I'm excited. The Duke and I gets a lot of flack. My friend Murphy hated it, gave it 1 star. I still gave it 5 stars. It's still one of my favorite series. That's never going to change, but I can understand her reasonings. But let's start. I will give a very brief synopsis of these ones because there's a lot of it. So first we have The Duke and I. This is about Daphne and the Duke of Hastings, and they start as a fake dating relationship, which quickly turns into a forced marriage where they care about each other, But they have a lot of issues that they're dealing with, including the Duke. He does not want to have any children, and Daphne does, and they don't go about things the right way, but I love them, and they're the start to a wonderful series. Then we have The Viscount Who Loved Me. This is about Anthony, the oldest, who is the Viscount of the family, and he needs to find a wife. But he believes that he's going to die at 38 because that's how old his father was when he died. So he doesn't want to really love the woman he marries because he doesn't want her to be sad when he dies. So he needs to marry someone, have a couple kids, and then he plans to die. But then he meets Kate, who is everything that challenges him, is exciting, enticing, and he decides that maybe he doesn't want to die at 38. Maybe he wants to live. And it's great. Then we have An Offer from a Gentleman. This is Benedict and Sophie. This is kind of a Cinderella retelling. This is Benedict being an asshat, but luckily Sophie loves him and they figure it out, and it's cool. And I love it. It starts with them, Sophie sneaking away to a ball, and then she goes through some hard times by her stepmother, and she runs into Benedict again a few years later, and she knows who he is, but doesn't remind him who she is because she is a bastard and realizes that she can't marry him. And Benedict makes some bad choices, but we love him anyway, and their romance is actually quite lovely when he stops being a jerk. Then we have, this is my favorite one in the series, guys. Here, let me show you some smutty in here. This is Colin and Penelope. And Penelope, we love. She's been our friend through all of the books. We adore her. She's an awkward duckling. She's now high on the shelf, has no hope of marrying anyone, and she's been in love with Colin for many years. Colin, he's messed up a few times, said he would never dance with her or marry her or whatever. He's wrong. They're friends. They have chemistry. He realizes he loves her. It's going to work out. Romancing Mr. Bridgerton, such a good book. So good. So good. Then we have To Sir Philip with Love. This is about Eloise. Eloise starts writing letters back and forth to her cousins. Her cousin died, and so her cousin's widower, she's writing notes to him, and they end up falling in love through the letters, and he asks her to marry him. So she leaves during the middle of Romancing Mr. Bridgerton. There's a big party, and she disappears, and she goes, shows up there, and marries him without telling anyone. That'll go great, right? Oh, and he has 2 children. Then we have When He Was Wicked, and this is about Francesca and Michael. Francesca, she got married pretty young. She was in love with Michael's cousin. And then his cousin died tragically, and she isn't ever going to love again. He becomes the heir and owns everything because they never had a baby. And she decides she wants to have a baby. So she makes Michael come back to town so that he can release some things that belong to her. I can't quite remember that part. But anyway, she wants to find a husband. And Michael, who feels horrible guilt because he always wanted to be with her, and then his cousin died, and so he couldn't be with her because he would be taking his cousin's widow, which would just be horrible, even though that's what they both want. And this is great. It also deals with what malaria does to people and why malaria is a bad thing. But this was good. This was painful. There are some trigger warnings for miscarriage and for spousal death, so know that. This was a heavy one, but it's good. It's not as lighthearted as the others, but it's very deep and wonderful. Then we have It's in His Kiss, and this is Hyacinth, the youngest. There she is. Look at her wonderful hair. This is Hyacinth and Gareth. So Gareth is the great nephew to this awesome sassy lady named Lady Danbury, who we have met through a lot of Julia's books, actually. She is in this series, she is in a couple other series we're going to get to, and she is the sassiest, badassiest lady ever. Now, Hyacinth, she goes to sit with Lady Danbury and read to her. She's not fully a companion, but she's a friend, and she comes to hang out with her and read. Gareth is dealing with some issues with his dad, who is he married Lady Danbury's niece And so that's how Gareth is the grandnephew. And he's dealing with some issues. And Hyacinth and Gareth kind of go on this sleuthing mission together to find something that Gareth's other grandmother, like his grandmother, which would have been Lady Danbury's sister, I think. Not sure. The family tree, guys, whatever. And they have this mission to try to find this lost treasure that this person hid so that her husband couldn't have it. And so they are discovering things together. And the reason Hyacinth needs to help is because the diary is like in a different language, and it's a language that she's able to like translate for him. I can't remember what language it's in, but it's really fun. This one had me laughing and giggling the whole way through. It was so good. And then finally we have On the Way to the Wedding, and this is Gregory and Lucy. And this one is just a treat. It's probably my second favorite after Romancing Mr. Bridgerton. So this one is cute, and it's just all about other people falling in love with the wrong people at the wrong time. And it's so much fun. I'll read this. I read this every time because it's so cute. So this is On the Way to the Wedding, in which, firstly, Gregory Bridgerton falls in love with the wrong woman, and secondly, she falls in love with someone else. But thirdly, Lucy Abernathy decides to meddle. However, fourthly, she falls in love with Gregory, which is highly inconvenient because fifthly, she is practically engaged to Lord Hasselby. But sixthly, Gregory falls in love with Lucy, which leaves everyone in a bit of a pickle. It's so cute. It's so cute. I love Gregory. He is the second youngest, and so we get to see all of the people we've loved up to this point and the things that they're going through and the children that they have, and it's so beautiful, and it just makes me happy, and it's wonderful. And then one more book about this series to talk about is we have the Bridgerton's Happily Ever After. So this contains a second epilogue for all of the books, and it also includes a story about Violet, who is the mother. And so in this series, Violet lost her husband, Edmund or Edward, I can't remember, when she was pregnant with Hyacinth. So she's had all of her children, and we've never got to see her and Edmund. And we know it had to be this beautiful relationship just because of how she's raised their children and how highly everyone thinks of their dad. And so and the thing that, like Julia said, is she was never going to write a prequel just about them because it would end sadly and we'd know that he died. But there is a really pretty prequel about how they like met and fell in love, and it's so great. So if you love the Bridgerton series, you really need to read this. Okay, so we got through all of that about the Smythe-Smith quartet. So if you've read any of Julia Quinn's books, there's something that gets talked about, and it's called the Smythe-Smith musicale. And so this happens every spring and fall, and it's these four girls do this like stringed quartet, and it's horrible. It's always horrible. And the four books in this are Just Like Heaven, A Night Like This, The Sum of All Kisses, and The Secrets of Sir Richard Kentworthy. So a lot of these girls are coerced into being in this musical, and they're all really bad at it, and none of them want to be in it, but their family makes them do it. And so we finally get to learn about the Smythe-Smith family. So this first one, Just Like Heaven, this is about Honoria and Marcus. So this is a brother's best friend romance. And so Marcus has always been coming over to their house, and something's different this time, and they fall in love, and it's adorable. Then we have A Night Like This, and this is Anna and Daniel. And so this is Anna. So Daniel is actually the Smythe-Smith in this case. And is he? Boop, 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 boop. No, he's not. One of these is the Smythe-Smith. Yeah, Daniel is the Smythe-Smith in this one. And he has been like injured, and so she's been taking care of him, and she's kind of been being like the governess, and then there's an enemy who's coming after her, and they have this like sexual tension. I love governess and lord stories. I know it's taboo, but it just goes back to my Jane Eyre heart that I have. And so this one is really cute because he's in danger from an old enemy, and he has been like taking care of And then he meets her at the musical, and he starts falling in love, and it's adorable. Then we have The Sum of All Kisses, and this one is Sarah and Hugh, and this is kind of a hate to love. Hugh is crippled, but he also has a really smart mind. He's kind of like a mathematician, and they have this really great chemistry because there's that little bit of like hate to love going on. And he, you know, it's that all those injured war heroes, man, they just think that they're not good enough. And I'm like, why wouldn't you be good enough? You risked yourself for your country. You're amazing. So this one was really fun too. And then we have The Secrets of Sir Richard Kentworthy, and this is about Richard and Iris. Richard meets Iris, and he immediately like wants to be with her, but he has some secrets, and Iris wants to marry him too, but she's nervous about what those secrets might be, and I'm sure those secrets are going to come out at some point. All right, and now the last series we have to talk about is the current series that she has going right now. And this is the Bridgerton Prequels, or it's also the Rokesby Series. So it's called two different things. Like, she puts a Bridgerton prequel on all of them, but it's called the Rokesby Series. And so the Rokesby family lived next to the Bridgerton family, and this is how they're intertwining with each other. So Edmund, he was one of the like middle sons. You know, like I said, Edmund married Violet. And so he's in these books, and we see Violet in them, in one of them, I think, but it's not about them. It's about like siblings and stuff. So the first one is Because of Miss Bridgerton, and this one is about Billy Bridgerton and then George Rokesby. And so he's the oldest Rokesby, and Billy is, I think she's one of the younger sisters. And she's kind of a wild child, so she's always running around, and she actually plays with her brothers and the Rokesby younger brothers when they were young. And George actually runs into her because she went to save a cat up a tree, and she like falls out of the tree. And so he brings her home, her sprained ankle, and then it's kind of like a hate to love because they were the least, like they get along the least of all the siblings back and forth, but there's some chemistry with them. And then you know, they're caught in a couple compromising positions, and so, you know, time to get married. And I just love that because she's known him his whole life, so he's known her whole life, and so there's a lot of teasing that goes along with it, and I just love that kind of relationship. Then we have The Girl with the Make-Believe Husband, and this one is Cecilia and Edward. And so this one is really sad because Cecilia's brother, he was injured in the war, and she goes to find him because she's about to be like forced into marriage or else has to live with an old aunt or something like that. And so she goes to find her brother, and she finds out that he died. But she finds her brother's friend, who is Edward Rokesby. And this is kind of exciting because in the previous book, we think that Edward has died because we haven't heard from him, and so the family thinks that he's dead. The Rokesbys do. And she goes to find him, and the only way she's able to see him is by pretending to be his fiance. And when he wakes up, he doesn't have any memory of it. So this is a while you were sleeping kind of reimagining. And so she's had to pretend to be his fiance, and when he wakes up, he doesn't remember that he didn't have a fiance. And since he doesn't want to embarrass her or ruin her life, he marries her. And it's great because he may be remembering that he didn't have a fiance, but he also might want to still be with her. So then we have The Other Miss Bridgerton. And this one is about Poppy and Andrew. So Andrew is a Rokesby and Poppy is a Bridgerton. So, but we haven't seen Andrew much because he is a sea captain and he may be a smuggler, but secretly working for the British government. And so Poppy ends up in the wrong place at the wrong time, and she actually ends up getting kidnapped by Andrew. And so this one, I remember it being a little awkward, like I'm telling you the truth. She's stuck on his ship and in his room a lot of the times. It's a shared bed situation. And they're also in pretty dangerous situation because there are bad people after him because he's working for the British government and he's doing it in a spying kind of capacity. So he's in a really dangerous position, and then Poppy gets thrown in and it's not so safe. But all of her books are so much fun. So then the final one, and this book will be coming out April 21st, and this will be First Comes Scandal. This is about Georgina and Nicholas, and I believe this is also a Rokesby and Bridgerton. And they, you know, of course, were childhood friends, and now they're going to enter a marriage of convenience with each other. I don't know any more than that because this book isn't out yet, but it comes out in about 2 months from now, and I'm so excited. This will finish up the Bridgerton prequel / the Rokesby series, and I can't wait to read it. So there you go. Those are all of the main titles by Julia Quinn, everything that she wrote on her own, all the series that she has out. I can't wait to see what comes next from her. She's been doing books for 25 years now. The first book came out in 1995, and I think that's amazing. Her catalog of books, I mean, I have good feelings about all of them. I definitely want to reread some soon. I just love owning them so much. So let me know what you thought of this video. I know this was a little bit different, but I love Julia Quinn so much, and I know I talk about her a lot, and I thought it would be fun to just list every book possibility that you could go with her. Let me know, again, if there's any other authors you'd like to see me do this with, and what you think. So thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day.